They say the moment you're rejected in front of the entire court, you become invisible. A ghost. Something people step over on their way to power. Alara Quinn learned that the hard way. Tonight, in the grand hall of Blackstone Court, she would be humiliated by the man who promised her everything. Tonight, she would be nothing. Or so they thought. Because what happened next? What she did when the Alpha King himself looked at her like she was something more than broken, would shatter every rule this kingdom ever knew. Stay until the end. You won't believe how this turns out. Drop a comment with your city if you're watching. The dress had taken Alara 3 weeks to finish. She'd sewn it by candlelight after her shifts at the border station, fingers bleeding from needle pricks, eyes burning from squinting at crooked seams. White cotton, not silk, because silk cost more than her father made in a year, with small glass beads she'd traded 2 months of breakfast for. They caught the light when she moved, made her look like she belonged somewhere better than a guard shack on the kingdom's forgotten edge. Her mother had cried when she put it on. "You look like a queen," she'd whispered, hands trembling as she fixed Alara's dark hair into something resembling elegance. Alara had smiled, hadn't corrected her, because tonight, maybe, it could be true. Kael had promised. She held on to that promise like a rope as the carriage rattled toward Blackstone Court, her stomach twisting with every mile. The other passengers, minor nobles, lesser pack members, didn't speak to her. They didn't need to. She could feel their eyes sliding over her homemade dress, her unpolished shoes, the calluses on her hands. Border trash, their look said. Doesn't belong. Maybe they were right. But Kael had promised. 6 months ago, he'd come to the eastern border on some diplomatic errand she didn't fully understand. She'd been checking supply logs when he walked into the station, all golden confidence and easy smiles, the kind of man who made rooms feel smaller just by existing. He was a rising heir in the Thorn Pack, third in line, but climbing fast, the kind of wolf people whispered about in tones mixed with fear and admiration. And he'd looked at her like she was the only person in the room. "You're wasted here," he'd said after their third night together, his hand warm against her cheek. "Come to Blackstone Court. When the next gathering happens, I'll claim you properly." She'd believed him. God, she'd believed him. The carriage stopped. Blackstone Court rose before her like a monument to everything she wasn't. Stone towers that scraped the sky, windows blazing with golden light, banners snapping in the wind bearing sigils of packs whose bloodlines stretched back centuries. Music drifted from the main hall, elegant and cold. Alara climbed down, legs shaking. The entrance was chaos. Wolves everywhere, dressed in silk and velvet and leather that cost more than her family's house. Alphas moved through the crowd like sharks, dominance rolling off them in waves that made her knees want to buckle. She'd never been around this much concentrated power. It was suffocating. "Name?" A board attendant at the door, clipboard in hand. "Alara Quinn, Border Guard family. I'm here for the gathering." The attendant's eyes flicked up, down, dismissive. "You're not on the list." "I was invited." Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. "By Kael Thorn." Something shifted in the attendant's expression. Not respect. Pity. "Right, Thorn. Go on in." The main hall was worse. It stretched impossibly high, all dark wood and iron chandeliers dripping with crystals that threw fractured light across hundreds of faces. The crowd was thick, loud, aggressive. Wolves didn't just socialize here. They postured, displayed, dominated. Every conversation was a negotiation. Every smile had teeth. Alara pressed against the wall, trying to be small. She searched for Kael in the sea of bodies. He'd be easy to spot, tall, broad-shouldered, that shock of copper hair. He'd see her and smile that private smile, the one that made her feel like maybe she was worth something after all. He'd take her hand and lead her to... There. Her heart stopped. Kael stood near the center of the hall, surrounded by important-looking wolves in expensive suits. He was laughing at something, head thrown back, completely at ease. Beautiful. Powerful. And next to him, her hand possessive on his arm, was someone else. She was tall, elegant. Her dress probably cost more than Alara's house. Dark hair swept up in a style that screamed old money, diamonds at her throat that caught the light like captured stars. She leaned into Kael like she owned him, and he didn't pull away. Alara's lungs forgot how to work. She must have moved forward without meaning to, because suddenly she was closer, pushing through the crowd with numb hands and a chest that felt like it was caving in. Kael's eyes swept the room, casual, and then he saw her. For half a second, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe guilt. Then it was gone, replaced by cool indifference. Kael, her voice cracked. She hated how small she sounded. I came. Like you said, Alara. He said her name like it was an interruption. This isn't a good time. The woman beside him turned, eyebrows raised in polite curiosity. Friend of yours? Acquaintance, Kael said smoothly. From the border territories. Alara, this is Sarah Blackwood, my fiancée. The word hit like a fist. Fiancé. The room didn't stop. Conversations continued around them. Wolves moved and laughed and schemed, completely unaware that Alara's entire world had just collapsed into ash. She stood there in her hand-sewn dress with her stupid glass beads, staring at the man who'd promised her everything, and felt herself crumble from the inside out. Fiancé, she repeated. Her voice sounded far away. You didn't mention. It's political. Kael's tone was almost apologetic. Almost. You understand how these things work. The Blackwood Alliance is important. My father, you promised me. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Around them, a few conversations quieted. Wolves turned, sensing blood in the water. I promised you nothing. His voice dropped hard and final. Whatever you thought we had, it was a distraction, a mistake. You need to leave. Sarah made a soft sound, almost sympathetic. Oh, darling, did you think... She stopped, hand over her mouth, but her eyes were bright with cruel amusement. How sweet. Laughter rippled outward. Not loud, not cruel, just amused. The kind of laughter that said this was expected, predictable, almost boring. Border girl thinks she belongs. Tale as old as time. Alara felt her face burn. She wanted to scream, to cry, to make him hurt the way she hurt. But her throat was locked tight, and her eyes were stinging, and if she opened her mouth, she'd break completely, right here in front of everyone, and they'd have that too. So she did the only thing she could. She turned and walked away. The crowd parted easily. Nobody stopped her. Nobody cared. She was nothing, after all. Just another girl who'd believed the wrong promises, worn the wrong dress, reached for something too far above her station. The hall's back corridors were quieter, colder. Stone walls that swallowed sound and gave nothing back. Alara's heels clicked against the floor, too loud, too desperate. She needed to find the exit, get to the carriage, go home and forget this night ever happened. But her vision was blurred and her chest was heaving, and she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't... She stopped, pressed her palm against the cold stone, forced air into her lungs. No, she wouldn't cry, wouldn't give them that. You lost? The voice came from behind her, low and rough. Alara spun. 3 men stood in the corridor. No, not men. Wolves. Alphas. She could feel it radiating off them like heat, making her instincts scream to run or submit, or both. They were dressed simply compared to the peacocks in the main hall, all dark clothes and controlled power. But there was something about them that made the air feel heavier. The one who'd spoken stood in the center. Tall, broad, with dark hair shot through with silver at the temples. His face was all hard angles and old scars, eyes the color of winter storms. He looked at her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. I'm leaving, Alara said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Party just started. The man on the left, younger, with an easy smile that didn't reach his eyes, tilted his head. Seems early to run. I'm not running. No? The center man, the dangerous one, took a step closer. You're not the girl who just got humiliated in front of the entire court? The one Kyle Thorne discarded for a better offer. Heat flooded her face. You were watching. Everyone was watching. His tone wasn't cruel, just factual. That's what court is. A performance. You played your part. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does. He studied her with those storm cloud eyes, and Alara had the unsettling feeling he was seeing things she didn't want seen. Cracks, weaknesses, everything she was barely holding together. But here you are anyway, border guard's daughter in a homemade dress, believing a pack heir's promises. That took either courage or stupidity. Both, apparently. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. What's your name? Why do you care? Humor me. She shouldn't answer. Should walk away from these men who looked at her like she was something interesting instead of something broken. But her feet wouldn't move and her heart was still racing, and some reckless part of her whispered, "What's one more mistake?" Elara Quinn. Elara. He said it slowly, like he was testing the weight of it. I'm Riker Vale. The world tilted. Riker Vale, the Alpha King. Every story she'd ever heard came flooding back. The wolf who'd unified the fractured packs through blood and strategy, who ruled the kingdom with an iron fist wrapped in calculated mercy. Ruthless, brilliant, untouchable. She'd seen his face on official notices, heard his name whispered in her father's station, but the man standing in front of her, he was real. Solid. Close enough to touch. And he was looking at her like she mattered. Your Majesty. She tried to bow, nearly tripped. I'm sorry, Relax. His voice was dry. I'm not going to bite. The younger wolf snorted. Today. Shut up, Marcus. Riker didn't take his eyes off Elara. You walked out with your head up. That's not easy. Most people crumble. I'm crumbling just fine, thank you. Another almost smile. Are you? Yes, her brain screamed. But her mouth said, no. Good. He stepped back, nodded toward the main hall. Come back inside. Elara's stomach dropped. What? You heard me. Come back inside. Why would I? Her voice climbed. I was just humiliated in there. Everyone saw. I can't. You can. Riker's tone shifted, went hard. You can walk back in there and show them you're not broken. That you're more than Cale Thorne's mistake. I don't want to. I know. Do it anyway. Why? The word came out desperate. Why do you care? He paused, looked at her with those terrible eyes that saw too much. Because you didn't cry, he said finally. You walked out with your spine straight and your face blank, and you didn't give them the satisfaction of watching you break. That takes strength, and strength is rare. I'm not strong, her voice cracked. I'm a border guard's daughter who believed the wrong person. I don't belong here. I should leave. Then leave. Riker's shrug was almost careless. Go home. Tell yourself you tried. Spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd been braver. The words hit like stones. That's not fair. Fair? He laughed, short and sharp. There's no such thing as fair. There's only what you're willing to fight for. So what's it going to be, Elara Quinn? You going to run? Or are you going to walk back in there and prove you're more than what they think you are? Her hands were shaking. This was insane. The Alpha King was asking her, nobody, nothing, to walk back into that hall full of wolves who'd just watched her humiliation like it was entertainment. To face Kyle and his perfect fiancé and all those judging eyes. Every logical part of her brain screamed to refuse. But there was another part, smaller, angrier. The part that had walked out of that hall with her dignity intact, that had held her tears until she was alone, that had survived her father's drinking and her mother's sadness and every person who'd ever looked at her like she was less. That part whispered, make them see you. If I go back in there, she said slowly, what happens? That depends on you. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Riker's eyes were steady. I can't promise you anything except this. If you walk back in there, I'll make sure they see you, really see you, not as Kyle's cast-off, as something else. What? I don't know yet. His smile was sharp enough to cut. Let's find out together. It was the worst idea in the history of worst ideas. Elara took a breath. Okay. Riker's eyebrows rose just slightly, like he'd expected her to refuse. Okay? I'll go back. Her voice was shaking but clear. But not for you, for me. Fair enough? He offered his arm. Shall we? Elara stared at his extended arm like it was a live snake. You don't have to. I know. Take it anyway. She did. His arm was solid under her hand, warm through the fabric of his sleeve. He started walking, and she followed, heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Marcus and the third man, silent, watchful, fell into step behind them. The corridor opened back into the main hall. Conversations didn't stop immediately. It took a moment, but then someone noticed, turned, and the ripple effect was instantaneous. Heads swiveled, voices dropped. The entire hall seemed to inhale as one. Because the Alpha King, who never attended these gatherings, who barely tolerated court politics, was walking through the crowd with a border girl on his arm. Kale's face went white. Sarah's mouth opened, closed. Riker didn't pause, didn't acknowledge the stares. He walked Alara straight through the center of the hall like she was exactly where she belonged. His expression carved from stone, dominance rolling off him in waves that made lesser wolves step back instinctively. "Smile," he murmured. "I can't." "Try." Alara forced her lips to curve. It felt like a grimace, but it would have to do. They reached the far side of the hall, near the raised platform, where the senior alphas were gathering. Riker stopped, released her arm, and turned to face the crowd. "Enjoying the party?" His voice cut through the noise effortlessly. The hall went silent. "Good." Riker's smile was all teeth. "Because we're just getting started." He looked at Alara, and in that moment, standing in front of hundreds of powerful wolves who dismissed her as nothing, wearing her homemade dress with her bleeding finger seams, Alara Quinn made a choice. She didn't look at Kyle, didn't acknowledge Sarah. She looked at Riker and lifted her chin and smiled like she owned the room. "Yes," she said clearly. "We are." The explosion of whispers was deafening. The next hour was a blur of faces and names and politics Alara couldn't begin to understand. Riker kept her close, introduced her to pack leaders and minor nobles with the same casual authority he'd used to discuss the weather. He didn't explain her presence, didn't justify it, just acted like she belonged, and somehow that made others treat her differently, not with respect exactly, but with confusion, wariness, like they couldn't figure out the angle, and that made her dangerous. Alara's face hurt from holding her smile. "You're doing well," Riker said during a brief lull, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "I'm dying inside." "I know, keep going." A server passed with drinks. Alara grabbed one, downed half of it in one swallow. It burned going down but cleared her head slightly. "How long do we have to stay?" "Until I say so." Riker's attention shifted to something across the room. His jaw tightened. "Or until someone does something stupid." "What do you—" "Riker." Kale's voice cut through the crowd, sharp and challenging. "A word." "Oh no." Riker turned slowly, expression neutral. "Thorn." "Enjoying your evening?" Kale looked different than he had before. Harder. His easy charm was gone, replaced by something cold and calculating. Sarah stood beside him, watching with barely concealed interest. "What game are you playing?" Kyle's eyes flicked to Alara, dismissed her. "She's no one. Border trash. Why bring her here?" The insult landed like a slap. Riker didn't move. "Careful. It's a valid question. You don't attend court. You barely tolerate these gatherings. Yet here you are, parading around with—" He gestured vaguely at Alara. "This." The room was watching again. Always watching. Alara's hands were shaking. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor and never exist again. But Riker's hand found the small of her back, steady and grounding, and somehow that kept her standing. "This," Riker said softly, "is Alara Quinn, and you will address her with respect." "Why?" Kale's laugh was ugly. "Because you've decided to slum? That's not respect, Riker. That's charity." "You rejected her," Riker continued, ignoring the provocation. "Publicly, cruelly, to secure a political alliance with the Blackwoods. I understand the logic. Smart move, politically speaking." Kale's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Then you understand, but it was a mistake." The temperature dropped. "Excuse me?" Kale's voice went dangerously quiet. "You threw away something valuable for something shiny. That's poor strategy." Riker's smile was cold. "I don't make that kind of mistake." Sarah's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." "Why not?" Riker's hand was still on Alara's back, warm and solid. "She's brave, resilient, Smart enough to walk away from a man who didn't deserve her. Those qualities are worth more than bloodlines or political connections. She's nothing, Kael bit the words out. She has no rank, no pack, no... She has my attention, Riker's voice went hard. And that makes her more powerful than half this room. The hall erupted. Not in sound. Everyone was too well trained for that. But Alara could feel the shock rolling through the crowd in waves. The Alpha King didn't do this. Didn't publicly claim anyone. Didn't involve himself in court drama. Didn't look at border girls like they mattered. Alara's knees felt weak. Riker. Marcus appeared at his elbow, voice low. Are you sure about this? No. Riker's eyes never left Kael. But I'm doing it anyway. This is insane, Sarah said. She was looking at Alara now, really looking, like she was trying to figure out the trick. What do you have that I don't? What could you possibly offer him? Alara's mouth opened, closed. She had no answer. Because Sarah was right. Alara had nothing. No rank, no power, no political value. She was nobody. But Riker's hand was still on her back, and the entire court was watching. And if she backed down now, she'd prove everyone right. So she looked Sarah straight in the eye and said, I didn't have to buy his attention. Sarah's face went red. Kael moved forward, aggressive. You don't get to... Back off. Riker's dominance slammed outward like a physical force, making Kael stumble. You made your choice. Live with it. This isn't over. Yes, Riker said calmly. It is. He took Alara's hand and walked away, leaving Kael and Sarah standing there in front of everyone, dismissed and humiliated and powerless to stop it. Alara's heart was trying to escape her chest. What just happened? She whispered. Politics. Riker didn't slow down. Uncomfortable yet. Terrified. Good. Means you're paying attention. He led her out of the main hall into a smaller chamber, quieter and less crowded. Senior pack leaders were gathered here, deep in conversation about territories and trade agreements and things that went over Alara's head completely. They looked up when Riker entered. Vale, an older man with silver hair and sharp eyes, nodded. Didn't expect you tonight. Didn't plan to stay long. Riker's hand was still holding Alara's. But plans change. The man's gaze dropped to their joined hands, back to Riker's face. I see. This is Alara Quinn. Border territories, the man said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Interesting choice. I think so. The weight of that simple exchange was crushing. Alara stood there feeling like a specimen under glass, examined and judged and found wanting by men whose names she didn't even know. She's very quiet, another pack leader observed. Shy? Strategic, Riker corrected. She knows when to listen. Does she know when to speak? Every eye turned to Alara. Her throat locked. These men could crush her with a word, destroy her family, ruin everything, and Riker was standing there expecting her to what? Prove herself? Impress them? She couldn't do this. But then she remembered Kael's face when she'd walked back into that hall. The shock. The anger. The moment he'd realized she wasn't broken. Maybe she couldn't impress these men, but she could refuse to disappoint herself. When I have something worth saying, Alara said carefully, I'll speak. Silence. Then the silver-haired man laughed, short and surprised. Fair enough. What's your assessment of the border territories? Your father's a guard, yes? What's the real situation out there? Oh, they wanted information. Alara took a breath. Stretched thin, under-resourced. The eastern border, especially. We're supposed to monitor the wildlands, but we barely have enough people to cover the stations, let alone patrol effectively. Smugglers know it. They've been pushing harder the last few months. Smugglers? One of the other men leaned forward. What kind of contraband? Anything that turns a profit. Drugs mostly. Some weapons. My father says there's been an increase in... She stopped. These were powerful men. Was she supposed to be sharing this? Riker's hand squeezed hers once, gently. Continue. In coordination between smuggling groups. Like they're organizing. The silver-haired man exchanged a look with Riker. You know about this? Had suspicions. Riker's tone was neutral. Didn't have confirmation. The border guards don't report properly? The border guards report what they think we want to hear, Ilara said, before she could stop herself. They're scared, underfunded, worried that if they admit things are bad, you'll shut down their stations and they'll lose what little protection they have. More silence. She'd said too much. But the silver-haired man was nodding slowly. That's unfortunate and accurate. We should address it, another leader said. If smuggling is increasing, we'll address it. Riker's voice had that final quality that ended discussions. But not tonight. The conversation shifted to other matters. Trade disputes, pack politics, territory negotiations. Ilara stood there trying to follow along, her head spinning with names and alliances and feuds that stretched back generations. Eventually, Riker excused them both. The walk back through the corridors was quiet. Ilara's feet hurt. Her face hurt. Everything hurt. You did well, Riker said. I barely survived. Same thing, in court. She laughed. It came out shaky. Is it always like this? This exhausting? Usually worse. They reached a balcony overlooking the courtyard. Riker leaned against the railing, looked out at the night. You can leave now if you want. You proved your point, walked back in, made them see you. That's enough. Ilara joined him at the railing. The courtyard was beautiful in the moonlight, all silver stone and careful gardens. Nothing like the rough borderlands where she'd grown up. What happens if I stay? Complicated things. More complicated than tonight? Much. Riker turned to look at her. I wasn't lying in there. About you being valuable, but claiming that publicly changes everything. You understand that? No. Ilara met his eyes. I don't understand any of this. I came here expecting one thing and got something completely different. I don't know what game you're playing or why you chose me or what you actually want. I just know that when you told me to walk back in there, I did. And it felt better than hiding. Riker studied her for a long moment. What do you want, Ilara? The question caught her off guard. What did she want? A week ago, she would have said Kyle, a life away from the borders, something better. Now, standing on this balcony with the Alpha King, wearing her bleeding finger dress, she didn't know. I don't want to be nothing, she said finally. I don't want to go home and pretend tonight didn't happen. I don't want to spend my life wondering what if. Then don't. That's not helpful. It's honest. Riker pushed off the railing. I can offer you something. Not romance, not promises of forever, but opportunity, a place at court. A chance to prove you're more than your bloodline or your station. It won't be easy. People will hate you for it, resent you, try to tear you down. Sounds awful. It is. His smile was sharp. But it's also power. Real power. The kind you earn, not inherit. Interested? Ilara's heart was racing again. This was crazy. Impossible. She'd come here for a boy who'd betrayed her, and now the Alpha King was offering her… what? A job? A position? She still didn't fully understand, but when she looked back at the main hall, she could see them through the windows. All those powerful wolves who'd dismissed her. Kyle with his perfect fiancé. The nobles who'd laughed. They'd expected her to break. She hadn't. And some wild, reckless part of her wanted to see what happened if she kept not breaking. What do I have to do? She asked. Survive. Riker's eyes were steady. The rest we'll figure out. It wasn't a real answer, but it was enough. Ilara held out her hand. Okay, I'm in. Riker shook it once, firm and final. Welcome to court, Ilara Quinn. Try not to die. She laughed despite herself. I'll do my best. Behind them, the gathering continued. Music and politics and power plays that would shape the kingdom. Ilara stood on the balcony in her homemade dress, with her hand in the Alpha King's, and felt the world shift beneath her feet. She'd come here believing one story. She was leaving with another, and maybe, just maybe, this one would have a better ending. The carriage ride back to her temporary lodgings was silent except for the sound of wheels on cobblestone. Ilara sat across from Marcus, Riker's second apparently, who watched her with the kind of casual interest you'd give a stray dog that followed you home. You know what you just agreed to? He asked finally. Not really. Honest, I like that. He leaned back, arms crossed. Most people lie, pretend they understand court politics when they don't have a clue. Would lying help? No, but it's what people do. Marcus studied her with sharp eyes. You're either very brave or very stupid. Haven't decided which yet. Can it be both? He laughed. Yeah, probably. The lodging house was small, tucked between two larger buildings like an afterthought. Alara's room was on the third floor, barely large enough for a bed and a trunk. She'd thought it was fine when she arrived. Now, after seeing Blackstone Court, it felt like a closet. Someone will come for you in the morning, Marcus said as she climbed out. Early, don't oversleep. Come for me, why? Because you're part of court now, whether you like it or not. His smile was sharp. Welcome to the nightmare. The door closed. The carriage rolled away. Alara climbed the stairs on shaking legs, let herself into her room, and sat on the bed. The dress suddenly felt too tight. She fumbled with the buttons, fingers clumsy, until the fabric loosened and she could breathe again. Her reflection stared back from the small mirror above the wash basin. Same face. Same dark hair falling loose around her shoulders. Same girl who'd arrived hours ago believing in promises. But something in her eyes had changed. She looked harder. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kael's face, Sarah's cruel amusement, the entire court watching her walk back in on Riker's arm like she was something that mattered. What had she done? Morning arrived too fast. The knock came at dawn, sharp, efficient, no patience. Alara dragged herself out of bed, threw on the only other decent dress she owned, and opened the door to find a woman standing there who looked like she'd been carved from ice. Alara Quinn? Yes? I'm Vera. The king sent me. She looked Alara up and down with the expression of someone evaluating livestock. We have work to do. What kind of work? The kind that turns border girls into something presentable. Vera walked past her into the room without invitation. Pack your things. You're moving. Moving where? Blackstone Court. You didn't think you'd stay here, did you? Vera's tone suggested this was obvious. You're under the king's protection now. That means appropriate lodging. Alara's stomach twisted. I didn't agree to... You shook his hand. That's agreement enough. Vera started opening drawers, assessing Alara's meager possessions with barely concealed disdain. Is this all you own? Heat flooded Alara's face. I'm from the border territories. We don't... Clearly. Vera pulled out the white dress, held it up. Did you make this? Yes. It shows. But something shifted in Vera's expression, not quite approval, more like acknowledgement. The stitching is amateur, but the design isn't terrible. You have an eye for structure. It wasn't a compliment, but it wasn't an insult either. Thank you? Don't thank me yet. Vera dropped the dress back in the trunk. You're about to enter a world that will chew you up and spit you out if you're not careful. The fact that Riker chose you publicly means every wolf with an agenda will either try to use you or destroy you, probably both. That's comforting. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be true. Vera's eyes were hard. I'm here to make sure you survive long enough to be useful, or at least entertaining, so pack your things and let's go. The room at Blackstone Court was 10 times the size of her lodging house space, windows overlooking the gardens, furniture that probably cost more than her family made in a year, a bathroom with running water that came out hot. Alara stood in the middle of it, feeling completely out of place. Better? Vera asked. Terrifying. Same thing here. Vera moved to the wardrobe, opened it. Inside were dresses, at least a dozen, all in different styles and colors. The king ordered these. They should fit. If they don't, we'll have them altered. Alara touched the fabric of the nearest dress. Silk. Real silk. I can't accept. You can and you will. You represent him now. That means you can't walk around in homemade cotton. Vera pulled out a deep green gown, held it up. Try this. Right now? You have somewhere else to be? The dress fit perfectly. Alara stared at herself in the full-length mirror, barely recognizing the person looking back. The girl in the glass looked like she belonged in a place like this. Elegant. Put together. Nothing like the border guard's daughter who'd sewn her own clothes by candlelight. It's strange, she said quietly. What is? Looking like someone I'm not. Vera's expression softened slightly. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're becoming who you could be. There's a difference. Is there? We'll find out. Vera smoothed an invisible wrinkle from the dress. The king wants to see you in an hour. Don't be late. See me why? Because he's the king and he doesn't explain himself to anyone, least of all me. Vera headed for the door, paused. Word of advice? Don't lie to him. He can smell dishonesty like blood in water. Be honest. Be yourself. That's what caught his attention in the first place. The door closed behind her. Alara sat down on the bed, carefully because the dress was too nice to wrinkle, and tried to steady her breathing. 1 hour. The king's private study was nothing like the grand halls. Smaller, warmer. Books lined the walls, maps covered the desk, and Riker sat behind it, looking more tired than she'd seen him last night. You came, he said without looking up. Vera said I had to. Vera says a lot of things. He finished whatever he was writing, set down the pen. How's the room? Excessive. You'll get used to it. Riker leaned back, studied her with those storm cloud eyes. The dress looks good. I feel like I'm playing pretend. You are. That's what court is. Everyone pretending to be more than they are. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. We need to talk. Alara sat, hands folded in her lap to keep them from shaking. Last night was a statement, Riker said. I made you visible, claimed you publicly as someone under my protection. That changes things. I'm starting to understand that. Do you? His tone was sharp, because I need to be clear about what happens next. There are people in this court who will see you as a threat. Others who will see you as an opportunity. Most will see you as a mistake that needs correcting. Correcting how? Any way they can. Rumors, sabotage, if they're bold enough, direct confrontation. Riker's jaw tightened. I can protect you from most things, but I can't be everywhere. You need to learn to protect yourself. Fear crawled up Alara's spine. I don't know how to. Then you'll learn. He pulled a folder from his desk, slid it across to her. These are the major players you need to know. Pack leaders, noble families, people with power and grudges. Study them. Understand their alliances, their feuds, what they want. Alara opened the folder. Pages and pages of names, family trees, notes written in tight script. This is a lot, I know, but necessary. Riker stood, walked to the window. The political assembly is in 3 days. Every major pack will be there. They'll be watching you, judging whether I made a mistake bringing you in. Did you? He turned, looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. I don't know yet. The honesty stung. Why me? The question burst out before she could stop it. I don't understand. There are hundreds of wolves more qualified, more connected, more acceptable? Riker's smile was bitter. Exactly. That's the problem. Everyone at court is acceptable, predictable, playing the same games their parents played, making the same alliances, perpetuating the same systems. It's stagnant, rotting from the inside. And I'm what? Fresh air? You're unexpected. He moved closer, intensity radiating off him. You walked into that hall with nothing and held your ground. You didn't crumble when Kael rejected you. You didn't run when I challenged you to come back. That's rare, Alara. Most people fold. You didn't. I wanted to. But you didn't. That's what matters. Riker sat on the edge of his desk, arms crossed. I need people around me who aren't afraid to be honest. Who won't just tell me what I want to hear. Can you do that? I don't know what you want to hear. Exactly. His smile was sharp. That's perfect. A knock interrupted them. Come in, Riker called. Marcus entered, followed by the silver-haired man from last night. Both looked tense. We have a problem, Marcus said. Of course we do. Riker's expression went flat. What kind? The Thorn Pack is calling for a formal inquiry. They're claiming you violated protocol by publicly favoring someone without rank or standing. The silver-haired man, Lord Corvin, Alara remembered from the folder, shook his head. It's political theater, obviously, but they're making noise. Let them. Riker's voice was ice. I don't answer to the Thorns. You answer to the Council. They're the ones asking questions. Corvin glanced at Alara. No offense, Miss Quinn, but you've become a symbol. Of what? People are still deciding. But symbols are dangerous. Alara's throat went dry. I didn't ask to be... Doesn't matter what you asked for. Corvin wasn't unkind, just factual. Matters what you are now. The assembly, Marcus said. They're going to push this. Make it an issue. Force you to justify your choice. Then I'll justify it. Riker's tone suggested the conversation was over. How? Corvin pressed. You can't just say you felt like it. The council needs reasons, political value, some benefit to the kingdom. I'll think of something. You have 3 days. I'm aware. Corvin and Marcus exchanged a look, then left. The door closed with a heavy click. Silence filled the study. This is my fault, Alara said quietly. No, it's mine. Riker ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking exhausted. I made a play without thinking it through completely. That was sloppy. You can fix it. Tell them it was a mistake. Send me home. No. Why not? It would solve... I don't make mistakes. His eyes snapped to hers, fierce. And I don't back down. If I send you away now, I look weak, like I can be pressured. That's worse than any political scandal. So I'm stuck here. We're both stuck. Riker's smile was grim. Might as well make the best of it. The next 3 days were hell. Vera drilled Alara on court etiquette until her head spun. How to address different ranks. Which families were allied, who hated whom and why. The history of pack feuds going back generations. Proper ways to sit, stand, speak, breathe in the presence of nobility. You're representing the king now, Vera said for the 100th time. Everything you do reflects on him. Every word, every gesture. You can't afford mistakes. What if I make one anyway? Then you'd better make it spectacular enough that people remember the audacity instead of the error. Vera's smile was sharp. Small mistakes look weak. Big mistakes look bold. Choose your failures wisely. Between etiquette lessons, Alara studied the folder. Names blurred together. Family trees branched and twisted until she couldn't track who was related to whom. But slowly, patterns emerged. The Blackwoods, Sarah's family, were old money, traditional, resistant to change. The Thorns were ambitious, climbing fast, willing to make risky alliances. The Greys controlled trade routes. The Ashens had military power, all of them circling each other like sharks, looking for weakness. And now she was swimming in the same water. The whispers started on the second day. Alara heard them in corridors, caught them in stolen glances. People talking about her, speculating. The theories ranged from ridiculous to cruel. She was a spy, a bastard daughter of some noble family, Riker's mistress, a political pawn in some larger game nobody understood yet. None of them guessed the truth. She was just a girl who'd made a desperate choice and was now drowning in the consequences. Ignore them, Marcus said when he caught her listening. Wolves gossip. It's what we do. Easy for you to say. Not really. I was an outsider once too. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Riker doesn't pick people from inside the system. He picks people who survived outside it. Makes us harder to corrupt. Or easier to break. That too. Marcus's smile was sympathetic. But you're still standing. That counts for something. The night before the assembly, Alara couldn't sleep. She stood at her window watching the courtyard below, where guards changed shifts and servants moved between buildings. Normal people doing normal things, completely unaware that tomorrow their world might shift depending on what happened in a political meeting she barely understood. A knock at her door. Riker stood in the hallway, still dressed, despite the late hour. Can't sleep? He asked. No. Me neither. He gestured to the hallway. Walk with me? They moved through the quiet corridors, footsteps echoing off stone. Most of the court was asleep. The few servants they passed bowed quickly and disappeared. You're worried about tomorrow, Riker said. It wasn't a question. Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He turned down a side passage that led to a small balcony overlooking the city. The assembly will be brutal. They'll question you, test you, try to find cracks. What do I say? The truth. Riker leaned against the railing. You're from the border territories. You understand things most of them have never seen. That's valuable. Own it. What if it's not enough? Then we adapt. He looked at her sideways. You asked me yesterday why I chose you. Want the real answer? Alara nodded, not trusting her voice. Because you were honest when everyone else was performing. Because you didn't try to manipulate me or play games. You just existed, yourself, completely. Riker's jaw tightened. I'm surrounded by people who want something. Power, influence, favor. But you didn't want anything from me. You just wanted to survive the night with your dignity intact. That's rare enough to be worth protecting. I don't feel worth protecting. You will. His confidence was absolute. Tomorrow, when they come at you, remember something? They're not stronger than you. They're just louder. Don't confuse volume with power. What if I fail? Then you fail. Riker shrugged. But you'll fail fighting. That's better than succeeding by backing down. They stood in silence for a while, watching the city sleep. Can I ask you something? Alara said finally. Depends on the question. Do you actually believe I can do this? Or are you just hoping I'll be useful enough to justify the political headache? Riker turned to face her fully. If I didn't believe in you, you wouldn't be here. I don't make bets I can't afford to lose. I'm a bet? Everything's a bet. His smile was tired. The trick is knowing which ones matter. Morning came too fast. Vera appeared at dawn with coffee and determination. The assembly starts in 3 hours. Let's make you look like you belong. The dress she chose was midnight blue, simple but elegant, hair pulled back severely, minimal jewelry. The effect was striking. Alara looked older, harder, more formidable than she felt. Remember, Vera said as she finished the last touches, you don't apologize for existing. You don't explain yourself unless directly asked. And you never, ever show fear. What if I'm terrified? Then you're a better actress than I thought. Vera's smile was almost kind. You survived the first night. This is just round 2. The assembly hall was massive. Tiered seating rose in a semicircle around a central floor where pack leaders and nobles sat in order of rank. The Alpha King's chair sat elevated above them all, a throne in everything but name. Riker already occupied it, expression carved from stone, radiating the kind of controlled power that made lesser wolves instinctively lower their eyes. Alara's seat was below him but separate from the pack leaders, a strange middle ground that made her status ambiguous. Intentional, probably. Everything here was intentional. The hall filled slowly, wolves in expensive clothes taking their places, talking in low voices that created a constant hum. Alara felt their eyes on her, measuring, judging. Kyle entered with Sarah on his arm. They took seats with the Thorn delegation, and Kyle's eyes found Alara immediately. His expression was cold, calculated, planning something. Lord Corvin stood, called the assembly to order. The first hour was administrative. Territory disputes, trade agreements, minor pack business that required council approval. Alara listened, trying to follow the complex web of politics and alliances. It was like watching a chess game where she didn't know all the rules. Then Kyle stood. I have a matter to bring before the assembly. Riker's expression didn't change, but Alara felt the temperature drop. Speak, he said. It concerns a breach of protocol. Kale's voice carried clearly through the hall. 3 nights ago, at the seasonal gathering, you publicly elevated an individual with no rank, no standing, and no political value. This violates tradition and sets a dangerous precedent. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. You want to question my choices, Thorn? Riker's voice was soft, dangerous. I want to understand them, as is my right as a pack leader. Kale gestured to Alara. She's nobody. A border girl with nothing to offer. Why should we accept her presence at court? Because I said so. Riker's dominance slammed outward, making several wolves flinch. That's reason enough. With respect, it's not. An older woman stood, Lady Ashford, one of the more traditional pack leaders. The king's favor is a precious thing. It should be earned. What has this girl done to deserve it? All eyes turned to Alara. Her throat closed. This was it. The moment Riker had warned her about. She could feel the weight of their judgment, their skepticism, their barely concealed contempt. Stand up, something whispered. Don't let them see you break. Alara rose on shaking legs. I didn't ask for the king's favor, she said. Her voice carried better than she expected. I came to court for personal reasons. Those reasons fell apart. I should have left, but when the king challenged me to stay, to prove I was more than people assumed, I made a choice. I chose to fight instead of run. Fighting requires an opponent, Kyle said coldly. What are you fighting? You. The word came out before she could stop it. And everyone like you. People who think rank is the same as worth, who believe bloodlines matter more than character, who would rather maintain broken systems than risk change. The hall erupted. Nobles shouted, some in agreement, most in outrage. Pack leaders stood, arguing across the chamber. Lady Ashford called for order, but nobody listened. Riker sat perfectly still, watching Alara with an expression she couldn't read. She has no right, someone yelled. This is exactly the problem, another voice countered. Enough! Riker's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Silence fell instantly. Miss Quinn has every right to speak, more right than most of you since she's being honest instead of hiding behind politics. Honest? Sarah stood, face flushed with anger. She's manipulative, playing the victim to gain sympathy. Am I? Alara turned to face her. Or am I just refusing to pretend I belong here when we all know I don't? Everyone in this room knows exactly what I am. Border trash, no connections, no power. The only thing I have is what the king gave me, and I didn't ask for it. Then why stay? Kyle demanded. Because leaving would prove you right. Alara's hands were shaking, but her voice stayed steady. It would prove that people like me don't belong. That power should stay exactly where it's always been, with families like yours, and I'm tired of that being true. The silence was absolute. Then Lord Corvin stood. The girl makes a fair point. She makes a radical point, Lady Ashford corrected. One that threatens stability, or creates opportunity. Another pack leader, younger, sharper, leaned forward. When was the last time someone challenged the system? When was the last time we promoted based on merit instead of bloodline? We maintain bloodlines for a reason, Kyle said. They ensure quality, standards. They ensure stagnation. Riker's voice was cold. Look around this room. How many of you earned your seats? How many inherited them from parents who inherited them from parents who inherited them? You talk about quality, but I see entitlement. This is not about entitlement, Lady Ashford began. It's exactly about that. Riker stood, and the entire hall seemed to shrink. I'm the Alpha King. I unified these packs when they were tearing each other apart. I brought order from chaos, and I did it by recognizing talent where it existed, not where it was born. Alara Quinn represents that principle. If you can't accept her, you can't accept me. The weight of that statement crushed down on the assembly. Kale's face went white. You're saying if we vote against her, we're voting against you? I'm saying exactly that. Riker's smile was predatory. So choose carefully. The vote, when it came, was close. Closer than it should have been, closer than Alara expected. But in the end, enough pack leaders sided with Riker, out of loyalty, fear, or genuine agreement, that she stayed. By 3 votes. 3 votes between acceptance and exile. The assembly ended in chaos. Nobles arguing in clusters, pack leaders making furious phone calls, alliances shifting in real time. Alara sat frozen in her chair, barely able to process what had just happened. She'd survived. Barely. Riker appeared beside her. Come with me. She followed numbly through back corridors, away from the shouting and politics. He led her to a small room, closed the door, and the noise cut off instantly. That was, she started. Close, I know. Riker paced, energy barely contained. Too close. I underestimated how much resistance there'd be. I made it worse. What I said about fighting them was perfect. He stopped, looked at her. You told the truth, called them out. That's exactly what I wanted. They hate me now. They hated you before. Now they also fear you. That's better. Riker's smile was sharp. You just proved you're not a puppet, that you have your own voice. That makes you dangerous. I don't want to be dangerous. Then you're in the wrong place. He moved closer, intensity radiating off him. But you're here now, and after today, there's no going back. You're part of this, whether you like it or not. Alara's legs gave out. She sat hard on a nearby chair, head in her hands. I can't do this. Yes, you can. I almost failed, but you didn't. Riker crouched in front of her, forced her to meet his eyes. Listen to me. Today was the hardest day. They threw everything at you and you survived. It gets easier. Does it? No. His honesty was brutal. But you get stronger. That's not the same thing, but it helps. A knock at the door. Marcus stuck his head in. We have another problem. Of course we do. Riker stood, jaw tight. What now? The Blackwoods are calling for a formal challenge. They're saying if Alara has the king's favor, she should prove she deserves it, publicly. Alara's stomach dropped. Challenge how? Marcus's expression was grim. Combat. Traditional pack law. You against their chosen champion. If you win, they accept you. If you lose, he didn't need to finish. Riker's face went dangerous. They can't. They can. Old law. Still valid. Marcus looked at Alara with something like pity. I'm sorry, but they're within their rights. The room spun. Combat. Against a trained pack warrior. She'd never fought anyone in her life. Had no training, no experience, no chance. Tell them no, Riker said flatly. If she refuses, it's the same as admitting she doesn't belong. The vote becomes invalid. She's out. Marcus shook his head. It's a trap. Either way, they win. Silence crashed down. Alara looked at Riker, saw the calculation in his eyes. He was already strategizing, looking for angles, ways to fight this politically. But there was no political solution. There was only her, and whatever choice she made next. When? Her voice sounded far away. Tomorrow, dawn, Blackstone Arena. Marcus hesitated. You don't have to do this. Yes, Alara said quietly. I do. Because if she didn't, everything she'd said in that assembly would be a lie. All that talk about fighting, about refusing to run, about proving she was more than they assumed. Time to back it up. Or die trying. Riker's hand found her shoulder, gripped hard. We'll prepare. Train. You're not going in there unprepared. I have less than a day. Then we make it count. His eyes were fierce. You survived tonight. You'll survive tomorrow. Alara wanted to believe him. But as she looked at Marcus's grim expression and felt the weight of what she'd just agreed to, she wasn't sure survival was possible anymore. She'd walked back into that hall 3 nights ago choosing pride over collapse. Tomorrow, she'd find out if that pride would kill her. The training yard was empty at midnight except for Marcus and a rack of weapons that looked like they'd been designed to kill efficiently. Pick one, he said. Alara stared at the blades, staffs, and implements she couldn't name. I don't know how to use any of these. Then pick the one that feels least wrong. Marcus crossed his arms. We have maybe 6 hours before dawn. Not enough time to make you good, but enough to keep you alive a little longer. She reached for a staff. Wood, worn smooth from use, about as tall as she was. It felt solid in her hands, less lethal than a blade. Maybe that mattered. Bad choice, Marcus said. Why? Because you're thinking defensively. Survival isn't about defense, it's about making the other person regret attacking you. He pulled a short blade from the rack, tossed it to her. She caught it awkwardly. This, keep it close, use it fast, aim for soft spots. I can't kill someone. Then you'll die. His tone was matter of fact. That's the choice. Accept it now or figure it out when it's too late. Alara's hand shook around the blade's handle. The weight was wrong. Everything was wrong. Who are they putting against me? Doesn't matter. Anyone they choose will be trained, experienced, and eager to prove themselves by taking down the king's pet project. Marcus moved into a fighting stance. Come at me. What? Attack me. However you want. Just move. She lunged, clumsy, telegraphed, pathetic. Marcus sidestepped easily, grabbed her wrist, and had her on the ground in 2 seconds flat. Again! They went until Alara's muscles screamed, until she couldn't hold the blade anymore, until her knees buckled and she vomited in the corner from exhaustion. Marcus just watched. Better. Still terrible, but better. I'm going to die tomorrow. Probably. He offered her water. But you'll die fighting. That counts. Riker appeared near Dawn, face carved from stone. He watched her stumble through another sequence, saw her fall, saw Marcus correct her grip for the 100th time. Enough, he said finally.
We have another hour, Marcus started. I said enough. Riker's voice had that quality that ended arguments. She needs rest more than practice. Marcus stepped back. Riker approached, studied Allura with those storm cloud eyes that saw too much. You don't have to do this. We've been over this. Her voice came out raw. If I don't fight, I lose. If I run, I lose. Only way out is through. There's always another way. Not one that lets me keep my spine straight. She met his gaze.
You said you chose me because I didn't break. If I back down now, I prove you wrong. Something shifted in his expression. You're going to get hurt. I know. You might die. I know that too. Allura's hands were still shaking, but her voice stayed level. But I'm done running, done being small. If they want to kill me for existing, they'll have to work for it. Riker's jaw tightened. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to say something else. Then he just nodded once, sharp. Come with me. He led her through corridors she hadn't seen before, down into the lower levels of Blackstone Court, where the stone was older and the air tasted like earth. They stopped at a heavy door. Riker produced a key, unlocked it. Inside was an armory. Not the decorative kind in the upper halls. This was functional. Weapons maintained for use, not display. Armor that showed wear from actual combat. Everything organized with military precision. This was my father's, Riker said quietly, before he died, and I took the throne. He believed in being prepared. He moved to a locked case, opened it. Inside was a vest made of some material that looked like leather, but felt harder. Kevlar weave. Won't stop a blade completely, but it'll slow it down. Might be the difference between dead and just bleeding. That's against the rules. There are no rules in a challenge, just survival. He pulled out the vest, held it up. It'll fit under your shirt. Nobody will see it. Allura took it. The weight was reassuring. Why are you helping me like this? Because you're about to fight for something I started. That makes it my responsibility. Riker's expression was hard. And because I don't want to watch you die for a political game. But you'll let me fight anyway. You didn't give me a choice. His smile was bitter. Stubborn. You would know. They stood in the armory while morning light started filtering through high windows. Allura could feel the minutes ticking away. Soon she'd have to walk into that arena, face whatever champion they'd chosen, bleed or die in front of the entire court. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Riker moved closer. Listen to me. When you're out there, don't think, don't plan, just react. Your body knows more than your brain right now. Trust it. My body knows how to lose. Your body knows how to survive. There's a difference. His hand found her shoulder, gripped hard. You've been surviving your whole life. Border territories, poverty, Kael's rejection, every person who looked at you like you were nothing. You survived all of that. This is just one more thing. This thing has a blade. So do you. His eyes were fierce. Use it. The walk to Blackstone Arena felt like a death march. Vera had dressed her in simple clothes, dark pants, fitted shirt, boots that wouldn't slip. The Kevlar vest was hidden underneath, warm against her skin. Her hair was pulled back tight. No jewelry. Nothing that could be grabbed or used against her. You look like a fighter, Vera said. But her eyes were worried. The arena was ancient, stone walls that had seen blood for centuries, tiered seating rising up on all sides, already filled with wolves who'd come to watch. The morning sun cut through at sharp angles, making shadows that looked like bars. Allura stepped onto the sand floor. It was softer than she expected. Would soak up blood easily. The crowd was loud, excited. This was entertainment to them, a spectacle. The border girl who'd gotten too bold about to be reminded of her place. Kyle sat in the front row with Sarah. Both looked satisfied, vindicated. Across the arena, a gate opened. Her opponent walked out and Allura's stomach dropped. He was massive. Easily 6'5", built like violence given form. Scars crossed his bare arms like tally marks. His eyes were dead, the kind that belonged to someone who'd killed before and would kill again without hesitation. "That's Gareth," someone near her whispered. "Blackwood's champion. Hasn't lost a fight in 5 years." Perfect. Lord Corvin stood in the center of the arena, voice amplified to Carrie. "This is a formal challenge under traditional pack law. Combat continues until surrender, incapacitation, or death. There are no other rules." Alara's hands went numb. Corvin looked at her. "Do you accept these terms?" Her voice came from somewhere far away. "Yes." "Then begin." He stepped back. Gareth smiled. It was the worst thing Alara had ever seen. Then he moved, fast, too fast for someone that size. He covered the distance between them in seconds, and Alara barely got her blade up in time. Metal screamed against metal. The impact jarred through her arms, nearly knocked her down. She stumbled back. Gareth followed, relentless. He wasn't trying to kill her quickly. He was testing. Seeing what she could do, playing with her. Another strike. Alara blocked, felt the shock in her shoulders. Her muscles were already tired from the night's training. This wasn't sustainable. Move. Don't think. React. She dropped low, swept at his legs. Gareth jumped back, actually surprised. The crowd gasped. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Not bad," Gareth said. His voice was gravel. "But not good enough." He came at her like a storm. Alara's world narrowed to steel and survival. Block, dodge, move. Don't think. Her body remembered what Marcus had drilled into her. Keep your center. Protect your core. Don't let him control the distance. But Gareth was better. Stronger. Every block cost her energy she couldn't spare. Every dodge brought her closer to the arena walls. He was hurting her, backing her into a corner. Panic spiked. Alara saw the trap, couldn't avoid it. Her back hit stone and Gareth's blade came down hard. She rolled left, felt the impact where her head had been. Stone chips exploded. Too close. "Get up. Move. Fight." She lunged at him, desperate. Gareth caught her wrist, twisted. Alara's blade went flying. Pain shot up her arm. Something popped. Not broken, but damaged. Gareth kicked her in the chest. The Kevlar absorbed some of it, but not enough. Alara hit the ground hard, couldn't breathe. The crowd was roaring, cheering. They wanted blood. They were about to get it. Gareth advanced slowly now, taking his time. The fight was over, and he knew it. "Should have stayed home, little girl." Alara's vision blurred. She tried to stand, her legs wouldn't cooperate. Everything hurt. The vest had bought her minutes, not survival. This was it. She was going to die here. But if she was going to die, she'd do it on her feet. Alara forced herself up, swayed. Her right arm hung useless. No weapon, no defense. Nothing but pride and stubbornness keeping her vertical. "Come on then," she said, blood in her mouth. "Finish it." Gareth raised his blade. Then something changed. His expression shifted. Uncertainty flickered across his dead eyes. He hesitated. Why? Alara didn't understand. Then she felt it, something rolling off her in waves. Not power, not dominance. Something else. Something desperate and furious and absolutely unwilling to quit. The crowd felt it too. The cheering died. Confused silence replaced it. Gareth took a step back. "What are you?" he said quietly. "Someone who doesn't break." Alara's voice was steady despite everything. "Are you going to kill me or not?" He looked at her, really looked. Saw the blood, the pain, the damaged arm, the complete absence of quit in her eyes. Then he did something nobody expected. He lowered his blade. "I yield," Gareth said clearly. The arena exploded. Nobles were on their feet shouting, pack leaders demanding explanations. Gareth stood in the center of it all, blade down, facing Alara with something like respect. "You didn't win," he said, "but you didn't lose either. That's enough." He turned and walked out. Alara stood there, broken and bloody, and completely unable to process what had just happened. She'd survived, not through skill or strength or luck, through sheer refusal to quit. The arena gate opened. Riker strode in, Marcus and Vera behind him. He reached Alara just as her legs gave out, caught her before she hit the ground. "You're insane," he said.
Probably. Everything hurt. Did I win? You survived. That's better. His arms were solid around her. Come on, let's get you out of here. The medical wing was clean and efficient. Doctors examined her, pronounced nothing broken, but everything bruised. Her right wrist was sprained badly. Ribs were cracked. Face was swelling. She looked like she'd been hit by a truck. You'll heal, the doctor said, but you need rest. Weeks of it. I don't have weeks. Then you'll heal slower and hurt longer. Your choice. The doctor left. Vera appeared with clean clothes. The court is in chaos. Nobody knows what to make of what just happened. What did happen? Alara's head was foggy from painkillers. Gareth yielded. To you. A trained champion gave up against a border girl with no experience. It's unprecedented. Vera helped her into a shirt carefully. Some are calling it weakness. Others are calling it wisdom. A few are calling it proof you're something more than you appear. I'm not. I'm just stubborn. Stubborn enough to make a champion quit. That's not nothing. Vera's expression was almost proud. You're becoming a problem they can't solve. That makes you dangerous. Riker entered without knocking.
Took one look at Alara's face and his jaw went tight. Leave us, he told Vera. She went. Silence filled the room. I should never have let you fight, Riker said finally. You didn't let me. I chose. A choice I could have prevented. He moved to the window, stared out. When he hit you that last time and you went down, I nearly stopped it. Protocol be damned. Why didn't you? Because you got back up. He turned and something raw showed in his expression. You always get back up. It's infuriating. Sorry, don't apologize. It's why you're still alive. He came closer, studied her injuries with careful eyes. The council is meeting tomorrow. Emergency session. They're going to address what happened. What's there to address? I survived the challenge. Barely. And in a way that raises more questions than it answers. Riker sat on the edge of her bed. Gareth yielding changed everything. It suggests you have something beyond physical ability, something that affects wolves on an instinctive level. I don't have anything. You have will, absolute unbreakable will. His voice dropped. That's rarer than strength, more dangerous than dominance, because will doesn't quit, doesn't negotiate. It just keeps pushing until something gives. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Riker's smile was slight. But yes, also a compliment. Alara shifted, winced as her ribs protested. What happens at the emergency session? They'll try to figure out what to do with you. You've become something they can't categorize. Too strong to dismiss, too unconventional to accept, too stubborn to remove. He paused. I'm going to make a move. A big one. But I need to know you're ready. Ready for what? To stop being my protected outsider and start being something more permanent. His eyes were steady. I'm going to propose you as my chosen queen. The room tilted. You're what? You heard me. Riker's expression was calm, but his hands were tense. It's the only move that makes sense. If you're my queen, your position is unassailable, protected by law and tradition. They can't challenge you without challenging me directly. That's insane. I'm nobody. I can't. You survived a death match through sheer will. You stood in front of the council and called them out for their corruption. You've earned respect from wolves who don't give it easily. He leaned forward. And you're the only person in this entire court who doesn't want anything from me except to be left alone to prove yourself. That makes you perfect. Perfect for what? A political arrangement? A convenient solution? For changing everything. His intensity was overwhelming. I told you the system is broken, stagnant. I need someone beside me who isn't part of it, who won't perpetuate the same games. You're that person. Alara's head was spinning. You don't love me. No, not yet. Maybe never. His honesty was brutal. But I respect you, trust you, believe in what you represent. That's more than most political marriages start with. This is crazy. It's necessary, Riker stood. Think about it. You have until tomorrow. He left. Alara lay there in her medical bed, body screaming with pain, mind racing faster than she could process. Queen. He wanted her to be queen.
The border girl who'd arrived in a homemade dress. The nobody who'd believed the wrong promises. Queen. It was impossible. It was insane. It was the biggest gamble either of them could make. And some part of her, the same part that had walked back into that hall, that had stood up to Gareth with no weapon, that refused to break no matter what they threw at her, whispered, yes. Marcus found her an hour later, staring at the ceiling. Heard about Riker's proposal, he said. News travels fast. Always does. He pulled up a chair. What are you thinking? That I'm not qualified. Nobody's qualified, that's the point. Marcus leaned back. You know what the difference is between you and every other person who's been offered this position? Common sense? He laughed. You don't want it. Every noble daughter, every pack princess, every ambitious wolf who's angled for the position, they all wanted the power, the status. You just want to survive. That makes you dangerous. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. His expression turned serious. But you should know what you're getting into. If you accept, you become a target. Permanently. Every wolf with an agenda will try to use you, control you, or eliminate you. Your life will never be simple again. It's not simple now. This is worse. This is choosing to swim with sharks instead of accidentally falling in. Marcus met her eyes. Are you ready for that? Alara thought about her father in his guard station, her mother crying over a homemade dress, Kale's promises that turned to ash, standing in that arena with nothing but refusal to quit. I don't know, she said honestly, but I'm tired of being afraid, tired of being small. If I say no, I go back to the border territories and spend the rest of my life wondering what if. If I say yes, if you say yes, you change everything, including yourself. Marcus stood. Whatever you decide, decide fast. The council meets at dawn. He left her alone with her thoughts. Night fell. Alara's body hurt less. The painkillers were working. But her mind wouldn't quiet. Queen. The word kept echoing. Queen. She'd come here for love, found something else entirely, purpose, power, the possibility of being something more than circumstances had planned, but at what cost? A knock, soft, tentative. Come in, Alara called. The door opened. Kael stood there, and for a moment Alara thought she was hallucinating. What are you doing here? I needed to see you. He stepped inside, closed the door. What happened today in the arena? I survived. That's what happened. You did more than survive. Kael moved closer, expression complicated. You made Gareth yield. I've never seen that before. He's a killer. He doesn't quit. Yet he did. Because of you. Kael's voice dropped. I made a mistake. With Sarah, with the political alliance. I see that now. You're something special. Different. Alara's laugh came out harsh. Are you seriously trying to win me back? Now? After everything? I'm trying to apologize. He looked genuine. Almost. I hurt you, rejected you publicly when I should have what? Chosen me over political advantage? You were honest about your priorities. I just didn't want to believe you. She met his eyes. The mistake wasn't yours, it was mine. For thinking you were something you're not. Alara, I'm not interested, Kael. Her voice was firm. Whatever we had died the moment you chose Sarah. And I'm glad it did. Because it led me here. To something bigger than romance. Than promises that break. To Riker? His jaw tightened. You think he's better? He's using you for politics. At least I felt something real. You felt what was convenient. Alara sat up despite her ribs protesting. Riker's honest about what he wants. You lied, and that's the difference. Now get out. Kale stared at her like he was seeing someone new. You've changed. Yeah, I have. She smiled, sharp. I got stronger. Happens when people stop breaking you. He left without another word. Alara lay back down, something settling in her chest. That conversation should have hurt, should have reopened wounds. Instead, it felt like closure. Proof that she'd moved past the girl who'd believed his promises. She wasn't that girl anymore. Maybe she could be a queen. Dawn came cold and sharp. Vera dressed her carefully, working around injuries. The outfit was formal but not excessive. Deep burgundy dress, simple lines, practical shoes she could move in if necessary. Her face was still swollen, but makeup helped.
You look like someone who could rule, Vera said quietly. I look like someone who got hit by a truck. Same thing in this court. Vera adjusted the collar. Have you decided? Yes. And? Alara met her eyes in the mirror. I'm saying yes. But Vera's smile was small but genuine. Then let's go make some history. The council chamber was packed. Every pack leader, every noble family, every wolf with enough rank to have an opinion. They filled the tiered seats, watching as Alara entered on Riker's arm. The whispers started immediately. Speculation, shock, anger. Riker led her to the center where 2 chairs sat elevated above the rest. His throne. And beside it, another chair. Empty. Waiting. Lord Corvin called the session to order. We're here to address the king's proposal. A formal selection of queen. Your Majesty? Riker stood. The chamber fell silent. I've made my choice, he said, voice carrying clear and strong. Alara Quinn, border-born, proven through challenge, earned through will. I claim her as my chosen queen. The explosion of protest was immediate. She has no rank. This violates tradition. She's not qualified. Enough. Riker's dominance crashed down like a physical weight. Silence fell instantly. I am your Alpha King. I unified this kingdom. I brought order from chaos, and I choose who stands beside me. Does anyone here challenge my right? Nobody spoke. Then it's decided. Riker turned to Alara, held out his hand. Will you accept? Every eye in the chamber locked on her. This was it. The moment everything changed, she could say no, walk away, go back to the border territories in relative safety. Or she could say yes. Step into the fire, become something impossible. Alara took his hand. Yes. The chamber erupted again, but Riker was already moving, leading her to the second chair. She sat. The cushion was firm. The height made her feel exposed. Riker sat beside her, reached over and took her hand again. Public, claiming, absolute. I present to you, he said clearly, your future queen. The protest was deafening. Pack leaders on their feet, demanding votes, calling for procedure. Lady Ashford looked like she might have a stroke. Kale's face was white with fury, but others, younger wolves, border families, those who'd felt the system's weight, they were standing too, applauding, supporting. The kingdom was fracturing right in front of Alara's eyes, and she was the cause. Lord Corvin tried to restore order, failed. The chamber descended into chaos. Nobles arguing, pack leaders shouting, alliances forming and breaking in real time. Then something happened that nobody expected. An older wolf, someone Alara didn't recognize, stood up from the back rows. His presence commanded attention. The chamber slowly quieted. I am Elder Matthias, he said, voice old but strong. I served the previous king, watched this kingdom tear itself apart over pride and tradition. And I say this, the girl has proven herself, not through bloodline, through courage. That matters. She's nothing, someone shouted. She's something this kingdom hasn't seen in generations. Someone who earned their place instead of inheriting it. Matthias looked at Alara. I support the king's choice. More voices rose, supporting, dissenting. The chamber was a battlefield of words and politics. Riker squeezed Alara's hand once. A silent message. Hold on. She did. The vote, when it finally came, was close. Brutal. Divided almost perfectly down the middle. But in the end, Riker's authority carried the day. Alara Quinn, border guard's daughter, nobody, nothing, became the chosen queen. The moment the vote was announced, Alara felt the weight of it crash down. This wasn't symbolic. This was real. She'd just become one of the most powerful people in the kingdom, and the most hated. The session ended in chaos, wolves leaving in protest, others staying to swear loyalty. The kingdom was fracturing, and everyone knew it. Riker led her out through back corridors, away from the crowd. That went well, he said dryly. Half the kingdom wants me dead. Only half? I'm impressed. His smile was sharp. Welcome to the throne, Your Majesty. The title hit like a slap. Your Majesty. That was her now. Queen. Impossible. Real. They reached a private chamber. Riker closed the door, leaned against it. There's no going back now, he said quietly. You understand that?
I understand. You're going to be attacked, tested every day. Every decision you make will be scrutinized, every word analyzed. They'll look for weakness, for mistakes, for any excuse to prove I was wrong. I know. And you're still saying yes? Alara looked at him. This man who'd seen something in her when everyone else saw nothing, who'd challenged her to be braver, who'd given her the chance to become something more. I'm saying yes, she said firmly, not because I think I deserve this, but because I'm tired of letting people like Kyle and Sarah and every other entitled wolf decide what's possible. If I'm going to fail, I'll fail trying to change things. Riker's expression shifted. Something almost like pride crossed his face. Then let's change everything, he said. He closed the distance between them. Kissed her. It wasn't romantic, wasn't soft or gentle. It was a claim, a seal, a promise that this was real. When he pulled back, Alara's heart was racing for entirely new reasons. That was, she started. Political, Riker finished, but his eyes said something else. We're bound now, partners. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Even when half the kingdom wants to destroy us? Especially then. His smile was fierce. Welcome to the war, Alara. Let's win it. Outside the chamber, she could hear voices, wolves gathering, planning. The resistance was forming already. But Alara Quinn, future queen, border girl, survivor, stood beside the Alpha King and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. An absolute terrifying determination to prove everyone wrong. The real fight was just beginning. The war started small. Anonymous letters left in her chambers calling her a whore, a pretender, border filth. Servants who looked through her instead of at her. Meals that arrived cold. Invitations to court functions that mysteriously never reached her. Alara read the letters once, then burned them. Ate the cold food without complaint. Showed up to functions uninvited and stayed until people acknowledged her presence. They're testing you, Vera said, watching Alara ignore yet another group of nobles who'd turned their backs when she approached. Seeing if you'll break. I won't. I know, that's what's driving them crazy. The real resistance was more sophisticated. 3 days after the vote, Lord Corvin requested a private meeting. Alara went alone, against Riker's advice, because running to the king for protection proved exactly what they wanted to believe about her. Corvin's office was all dark wood and old money. He sat behind his desk like a judge at trial. Miss Quinn, or should I say, Your Majesty. The title dripped with skepticism. Alara is fine. Alara, then. He steepled his fingers. I'll be direct. Half the council thinks you're a mistake. They're organizing, quietly, but organizing nonetheless. To do what? Remove you. Legally, if possible. Otherwise, if necessary. His expression was neutral. I'm telling you this because I don't believe in wasting resources on inevitable outcomes. If you step down voluntarily, they'll accept it. You can return to the border territories with compensation. Live comfortably. Avoid the ugliness. And if I don't step down? Then the ugliness becomes unavoidable. Corvin leaned forward. You seem like a reasonable person. Why die on this hill? You didn't ask for this position. You don't want it. Walk away. Alara studied him, saw the calculation behind the courtesy. You're wrong about one thing. What's that? I do want it now. She met his eyes steadily. Not because of power or status, because every person who tells me I don't belong makes me more determined to stay. So no, I won't step down. Corvin's jaw tightened. Then you're a fool. Probably, but I'm a fool with a crown. Alara stood. Is that all? For now. His smile was cold. But this conversation will seem generous compared to what's coming. She left without looking back. Marcus was waiting in the corridor. How bad? They're organizing against me. Officially. Expected. He fell into step beside her. Riker's calling an emergency cabinet meeting. Wants you there. The cabinet room was tense. Pack leaders loyal to Riker sat on one side of the long table. Those opposed, or neutral, sat on the other. The divide was stark. Riker stood at the head, waiting until Alara entered and took her seat beside him. The simple act of sitting in that chair, the Queen's chair, sent ripples of resentment through the room. We have a problem, Riker said without preamble. The eastern border is collapsing.
Smuggling has increased 40% in the last month. Guard stations are understaffed and under-equipped. We're losing control. That's not new information, Lady Ashford said. The borders have been problematic for years. It's worse now, organized, like someone's coordinating the smugglers. Riker's gaze swept the room. I want solutions, real ones, not political posturing. Silence. Then Ilara spoke. Increase funding to the border stations. Triple it. Every head turned. With what money? Lord Brennan, one of the opposition leaders, asked coldly. The Treasury isn't infinite. Reallocate from the ceremonial budget. The palace spends more on decorative functions in a month than the entire eastern border sees in a year. Ilara's voice was steady. Cut the waste. Fund the defense. That's absurd, Lady Ashford sputtered. The ceremonial budget maintains tradition, demonstrates our strength to other kingdoms. It demonstrates that we value appearances over security. Ilara leaned forward. I grew up on those borders. I've seen what happens when guards are stretched too thin. Smugglers don't care about our traditions. They care that we're vulnerable. You would gut our cultural heritage for... I would stop people dying for your pride. Ilara's patience snapped. Those guards are barely surviving. While you throw parties that cost more than their annual salaries, they're fighting smugglers with broken equipment and no support. If you think that's acceptable, you're not just wrong. You're complicit. The room exploded. Nobles shouting, pack leaders standing, accusations flying. Riker sat perfectly still, watching Ilara hold her ground against wolves with 50 times her experience. Order, he said quietly. The room fell silent instantly. The Queen makes a valid point. She makes a radical point, Brennan countered, one that undermines centuries of protocol. Protocol doesn't stop smugglers. Riker's tone was ice. Results do. I want a proposal on my desk by morning. Border funding increase. Ceremonial budget cuts. Make it work. You're actually considering this? Lady Ashford looked horrified. I'm ordering it. Riker's dominance filled the room. Does anyone have a better solution? Nobody did. The meeting ended with barely controlled fury. Nobles filed out shooting poisonous looks at Ilara. She sat there, hands shaking under the table, trying to look calmer than she felt. When they were alone, Riker turned to her. That was reckless. I know. You just made more enemies than you can count. I know that too. Ilara finally looked at him. But I was right, and you know it. Being right doesn't make you safe. But something in his expression shifted. Not quite approval, more like recognition. The border funding. That's personal for you. My father's still out there. His station gets supply shipments once every 3 months if they're lucky. The guards share equipment, make do with broken radios. Her voice went tight. They're forgotten, and it's killing them. Riker studied her for a long moment. You're not just fighting for a position. You're fighting for them. Shouldn't I be? Most queens fight for power, not people. He stood, moved to the window. It makes you dangerous in ways they can't predict, because you actually care. Is that bad? It's terrifying for them. His smile was sharp and useful. For us. The proposal hit the council the next morning. Ceremonial budget slashed by 60%. Border funding tripled. Guard stations would receive new equipment, better pay, proper support structures. The resistance was immediate and vicious. This is tyranny, Lord Brennan declared in open court. The king and his companion, destroying tradition without consultation. We consulted, Riker said coldly. You had no better ideas. Because your queen silenced reasonable discussion with emotional appeals. I presented facts. Ilara stood, ignoring Vera's warning look. Guard stations failing, smuggling increasing, people dying. If acknowledging reality is emotional, then yes, I'm emotional. You're inexperienced, naive. Brennan's smile was cruel. You think throwing money at problems solves them? The borders are a lost cause, always have been. We maintain them as symbol, nothing more. Those symbols are people, Ilara's voice rose. Guards with families, communities struggling to survive. You've written them off because they're not convenient, not politically useful. They're not worth bankrupting the kingdom over. Neither are your parties. Ilara moved closer to the council floor.
But somehow, we find money for those. Find money for decorative banquets and ceremonial weapons that never get used and maintaining buildings nobody lives in. All while people on the borders starve. You want to talk about worth? Let's talk about what actually matters. The chamber was silent. Brennan's face went red. You don't get to lecture. She just did. Riker's voice cut through. And she's right. The vote is called. All in favor of the border funding increase? The vote split exactly as expected. Those loyal to Riker voted yes. Opposition voted no. But the margins were closer than before. A few wolves who'd been firmly against Alara abstained instead. Small progress. But progress. The proposal passed. That night, assassination attempt number 1 came through poisoned wine. Alara smelled it before drinking, something off about the sweetness. Had it tested. The servant who brought it disappeared before questioning. Nobody claimed responsibility. They're getting bolder, Marcus said, examining the wine bottle. This isn't subtle. Good. Alara's hands weren't shaking anymore. Means I'm making them desperate. Means you're making them murderous. There's a difference. Riker tripled her security. Guards outside her chambers. Food tasters. Limited access. It felt like prison pretending to be protection. I can't live like this, Alara said. You can, and you will. Riker's tone left no room for argument. I won't let them kill you for being effective. I'm not effective. I passed one proposal. You changed the conversation, made nobles defend wasting money on ceremony while borders collapse, forced them to show their priorities publicly. He moved closer. That's more dangerous than any law, because it makes people think. The border funding implementation started within the week. Alara insisted on overseeing it personally, against everyone's advice. Riker assigned Marcus and 20 guards. Vera came too, grumbling about death wishes. The trip to the eastern border took 3 days. Alara watched the landscape change from palace luxury to rural poverty, saw the villages that supplied the court with grain but lived on scraps, the communities that sent their children to serve noble families and never saw them again. Her father's station was exactly as she remembered, run down, undersupplied, held together by stubbornness and pride. He was in the yard when they arrived, arguing with another guard about rationing, stopped mid-sentence when he saw the convoy, saw Alara step out wearing Queen's colors and surrounded by royal guards. His face went blank. Alara? Hi, Dad? They stared at each other across 10 feet of dirt and a lifetime of different worlds. He gestured vaguely. They said, on the radio, but I didn't believe it's true. Alara closed the distance. I'm queen now, or will be, officially. Her father looked older than she remembered, more tired, but his eyes were the same, sharp and assessing. You survived then, the court. Barely, several times. She smiled despite the tightness in her chest. I came because we're implementing changes, border funding, equipment. You'll have what you need. Why? The question was blunt, suspicious. Because you shouldn't have to share radios, or make do with broken equipment, or risk your life for a kingdom that forgot you existed. Alara's voice stayed steady. Because I remember what it's like here, and I have power now. Might as well use it. Her father studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Always were stubborn. Learned from the best. The other guards gathered slowly, watched this strange scene, the queen in their dirt yard talking to their captain like he was regular people. Because he was. They all were. Alara spent 3 hours documenting their needs, every broken piece of equipment, every supply shortage, every security gap. Marcus watched with growing respect. Vera took notes faster than seemed possible. This is more than anyone's done in 20 years, one guard said quietly. Why now? Because someone finally asked, Alara met his eyes, and because you deserve better. The story spread fast. Queen visiting border stations, actually listening, actually caring. By the time they reached the second station, word had preceded them. Guards lined up with their complaints, their needs, their hope that maybe something would actually change. Alara listened to all of it, promised what she could deliver,
was honest about what she couldn't, treated them like people instead of symbols. It was exhausting, but it mattered. On the third day, they found the smuggler operation. Not intentionally. They'd stopped at a smaller outpost when Marcus noticed tracks. Too many vehicles for a legitimate operation, moving at odd hours. He investigated while Alara met with guards. What he found changed everything. "It's massive," Marcus reported, maps spread across the table in the station commander's office. "Warehouses, distribution networks, weapons stockpiles. This isn't random smuggling, it's organized crime with military precision." "Who's running it?" Alara asked. "That's the interesting part." Marcus pointed to intercepted communications. "The coordination is coming from inside Blackstone Court, someone high enough to access Border Patrol schedules, to know when shipments move, when guards change." The room went cold. "You're saying a noble is running this?" the station commander said. "I'm saying someone with access to classified information is. That's either a noble or someone very close to one." Marcus looked at Alara. "This is bigger than smuggling. This is treason." Alara's mind raced. Who benefited from border chaos? Who'd fought hardest against her funding proposal? "We need evidence," she said. "Real evidence, not speculation. We raid the warehouses, seize records, follow the money." Marcus was already planning. "But we do it quietly. If whoever's running this gets wind, they'll burn everything." "Do it," Alara's voice was hard, "but carefully. I want them alive to answer for this." The raid happened at dawn 2 days later. Coordinated strikes on 3 warehouses simultaneously. Marcus led one team. Loyal border guards led the others. Alara stayed back, again against her preference, and waited. The wait was agony. Then Marcus's radio crackled. "We got them, and you're not going to believe what we found." The evidence was damning. Financial records linking the smuggling operation to the Blackwood family, Sarah's family, the same nobles who'd fought hardest against Alara's reforms, who'd called her a threat to tradition. They weren't protecting tradition. They were protecting their criminal enterprise. "This is treason," Marcus said, examining the documents. "Capital offense. The Blackwoods will fight it, but the evidence is solid. They'll say it's fabricated, a political attack." Alara's mind was already running scenarios. "We need more than documents. We need testimony. They got it from a captured smuggler who decided cooperation was better than execution. He laid out the entire operation, how the Blackwoods used border chaos to move contraband, how they bribed officials, how they'd sabotaged guard stations to maintain the instability. It was comprehensive, detailed, devastating. Alara took the evidence back to Blackstone Court personally. The emergency council session was packed. Every noble family, every pack leader, everyone who mattered. The Blackwoods sat in their usual seats, confident and untouchable. Sarah smiled at Alara like nothing was wrong. "We're here because new evidence has emerged," Riker said. His voice was neutral, but his eyes were ice. "Evidence of treason, of noble families using border instability for profit, while guards died protecting a kingdom that was being sold out from within." The room erupted. Denials. Accusations. Chaos. Riker let it run for 30 seconds, then his dominance slammed down. "Sit. Quiet. Now." Silence fell like a guillotine. "The evidence." He gestured to Marcus, who began displaying documents on the chamber screens. Financial records, communications, testimony, all of it pointing to the Blackwoods. Lord Blackwood stood slowly. "This is a fabrication. Political theater designed to discredit my family because we oppose the border girls' reforms. My name is Alara," she said coldly, "and these aren't fabrications. They're your records, your communications, your treason. You can't prove. We have a witness. Multiple witnesses. Guards who were bribed. Smugglers who worked for you. All willing to testify." Alara stood, moved to the chamber floor. "You called me naive, inexperienced, said the borders were a lost cause. But they weren't a lost cause. They were your business model. You needed them unstable, needed them vulnerable, because that's how you made your fortune." Sarah was pale. Her father looked murderous. "This is slander," he said. "We have served this kingdom for generations. You've bled it for generations," Riker's voice cut through. "The evidence is clear. You're charged with treason. conspiracy, multiple counts of criminal enterprise. How do you plead? I demand a formal trial, full counsel review. This is, granted, you'll get your trial. Riker's smile was sharp. But you'll get it from a cell. Guards, arrest Lord Blackwood and his family. All of them. The chamber exploded again. Nobles shouting, the Blackwoods resisting, guards moving in with grim efficiency. Sarah screamed as she was dragged away. This is because of her. The border trash. She's destroying everything. No, Alara said clearly. I'm fixing what you broke. The Blackwoods were removed. The chamber descended into chaos. Pack leaders demanding explanations. Noble families distancing themselves from the fallen house. Political alliances reforming in real time. Alara stood in the center of it all, watching the power structure crack. She'd done this. The border girl. The nobody. She'd brought down one of the most powerful families in the kingdom. The trial lasted 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming. The Blackwoods fought viciously, but their own records condemned them. Testimony from guards they'd bribed, smugglers they'd employed, a paper trail that led directly to their vaults. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Lord Blackwood was executed. Sarah and her mother were stripped of rank and exiled, their assets seized, their name erased from noble records. It was brutal. Absolute. A message. The court watched it happen and understood. The new queen was not symbolic. She was dangerous. In the aftermath, something shifted. Nobles who'd dismissed Alara started taking her seriously. Pack leaders who'd voted against her reforms abstained instead. Not support, exactly, but not opposition either. Elder Matthias approached her after the trial. You did well, better than well. You changed the kingdom. I just exposed criminals. You proved the system could be challenged. That power doesn't protect you from consequences if you're wrong. His smile was slight. That terrifies them, but it also gives them hope. Hope for what? That merit might matter more than bloodline, that the kingdom could be something better. He studied her with sharp eyes. You're not just surviving anymore, Your Majesty. You're leading. Remember the difference. The border funding implementation accelerated after the Blackwood arrest. Guards received new equipment. Stations were repaired. Pay increased. The results were immediate. Smuggling dropped by 30% in the first month. Alara received letters from border communities, thanking her, blessing her, calling her their queen in ways that felt real. She read every one. You're popular with the people, Vera observed. That's dangerous in court. Makes nobles nervous. Good. They should be nervous. Alara was going through security reports, marking issues. They've had unchallenged power for too long. Time they remembered who they actually serve. Vera's smile was proud. You sound like a queen. I am a queen. Alara looked up. Might as well act like it. Riker found her that evening in her chambers, surrounded by paperwork and maps. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her work. You brought down a noble house, he said finally. We brought down a criminal enterprise. Same thing, in this case. He moved into the room, sat across from her. Do you understand what you've done? The precedent you've set? That nobles can't commit treason without consequences? That power can be challenged? That the system isn't infallible? His eyes were intense. You've made enemies, but you've also made believers. People who think maybe the kingdom can change. Can it? I don't know. His honesty was brutal as always, but you're proving it's possible. That's more than anyone's done in decades. They sat in comfortable silence. Partners. Not romantic, not yet, maybe never, but something deeper. Mutual respect, shared purpose, trust. The council wants to formalize your position, Riker said. Official coronation. Full ceremony, make you legally untouchable. When? 2 weeks, if you're ready. Alara thought about everything that had led here. Kale's rejection, the assembly, the arena, the vote, the assassination attempts, the Blackwood trial. She'd survived all of it. More than survived. She'd won. I'm ready, she said. Riker's smile was fierce. Then let's give them a queen they'll never forget. Outside her window, Blackstone Court glowed in the evening light. The same court that had dismissed her, humiliated her, tried to break her. Now it was hers. Not completely. Not yet. There were still wolves who hated her, plots against her, danger around every corner, but she'd proven she could fight, could win, could change things. The border girl had become a queen, and the kingdom would never be the same. The coronation dress arrived a week before the ceremony.
Elara stood in front of the mirror while 3 seamstresses fussed over fabric that cost more than her childhood home. Deep midnight blue, almost black, with silver threading that caught light like captured stars. The design was bold, modern, nothing like traditional queen's regalia. "You hate it," Vera said from the doorway. "I don't hate it. I'm terrified of it." Elara touched the fabric carefully. "This makes it real. It's been real since you survived the arena."
This just makes it official. The seamstresses finished their adjustments and left. Elara stood alone in front of the mirror, looking at someone she barely recognized. The girl who'd arrived in a hand-sewn white dress was gone. In her place stood someone harder, sharper, someone who looked like she could rule. "You're overthinking," Vera said, again. "I'm about to be crowned queen of a kingdom that half wants me dead. I'm thinking exactly the right amount." "Fair point." Vera moved closer, adjusted the dress's collar. "But you've survived worse. You'll survive this too." The days leading up to the coronation were chaos wrapped in ceremony. Nobles arriving from across the kingdom. Foreign dignitaries sending congratulations laced with curiosity. The court scrambling to prepare for an event that would reshape the political landscape. And underneath it all, the resistance. They were quieter now. The Blackwood arrest had scared the more obvious opposition into hiding. But Elara could feel them watching, waiting, looking for the moment she'd slip. "There's been chatter," Marcus reported during a security briefing. "Nothing specific, just general discontent among the traditionalist factions." Define general discontent. "They think you're moving too fast, changing too much. They want you to slow down, consolidate, prove you can maintain stability before pushing more reforms." Elara laughed, short and sharp. "They want me to stop being effective." Essentially, yes. Marcus's expression was grim. "And if you don't, they'll find ways to make you." "Let them try." Elara was done being cautious. "We've started something. Stopping now just proves they can intimidate us into compliance. Or it proves you're smart enough to pick your battles." "I've been picking battles since I got here. Won most of them." She met his eyes. "I'm not stopping because it makes them comfortable." Marcus sighed. "You're as stubborn as he is." "Who?" "Riker. You're both going to get yourselves killed being right at people until they crack." "Probably," Elara smiled despite the tension. "But at least we'll be right." 3 days before the coronation, Lord Brennan requested an audience. Elara received him in her private study, neutral ground, surrounded by guards Marcus had personally vetted. Brennan looked older than she remembered, tired. "Your Majesty." He inclined his head. Respectful. Almost. "Lord Brennan, this is unexpected." "I imagine it is." He sat without invitation, which should have been rude but felt more like exhaustion. "I'll be direct. I came to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "Your position, your reforms, the future of this kingdom." Brennan steepled his fingers. "You've made enemies, powerful ones. The Blackwood trial bought you time. Fear is a useful tool, but it won't last. Eventually, they'll organize, find leverage, destroy you." "Is that a threat?" "It's a prediction." His smile was tired. "I've been in court politics for 40 years. I've seen reformers come and go. The ambitious ones burn bright and die fast. The smart ones compromise, find middle ground. I'm not interested in middle ground." "Then you're interested in dying." Brennan leaned forward. "Listen to me. You've done remarkable things. Border reforms, exposing corruption, surviving challenges that should have killed you, but there's a limit to what one person can accomplish against an entire system. Then I'll change the system." "You can't. Not alone. Not in your lifetime." His tone wasn't cruel, just factual. "What you can do is make strategic compromises. Give the traditionalists something. Slow your reforms. In exchange, they stop actively trying to kill you." Elara studied him. saw genuine concern mixed with political calculation. You're here because you're afraid. I'm here because I'm pragmatic. Brennan's mask slipped slightly. You've destabilized everything. The old alliances are fractured. Power structures are shifting. That creates opportunity, but also danger. If you push too hard, the entire kingdom could fracture. Civil war, chaos. Or real change. Change isn't worth blood in the streets. It is if the alternative is slow rot. Alara stood. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not compromising. The reforms continue. The corruption gets rooted out. If that destabilizes the kingdom, maybe the kingdom needed destabilizing. Brennan stared at her. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Both, repeatedly. She moved to the door, opened it. Was there anything else? He stood slowly. When this goes badly, and it will, remember I tried to warn you. I'll remember, but it won't change anything. He left. The door closed. Alara leaned against it, heart racing. Every political instinct she'd developed screamed that she'd just made a mistake. That compromise was smart, that pushing this hard would break something, but she'd spent her whole life compromising. Being small. Accepting less. Not anymore. The night before the coronation, Riker found her on the same balcony where they'd first talked about the assembly. She was staring at the city, lost in thought. Can't sleep? He asked. Too much thinking. Dangerous habit. He joined her at the railing. Brennan's visit bothered you. How did you... I know everything that happens in this court, especially things involving you. His tone was matter-of-fact. What did he want? To convince me to slow down, compromise, make nice with the traditionalists before they organize something worse than assassination attempts. Smart advice. Alara turned to stare at him. You agree with him? Politically? Yes. It's the safe play. Riker's expression was unreadable. But I didn't choose you because you make safe plays. I chose you because you make necessary ones. Even if they're dangerous? Especially then. He looked at her fully. Tomorrow you become queen. Officially, legally, permanently. Everything changes after that. No more testing period. No more probation. You'll have real power. The question is what you do with it. I keep pushing. Keep reforming. Keep proving they're wrong about everything. That'll make enemies. I already have enemies. More enemies. Worse enemies. The kind that don't send poison or hired fighters. The kind that dismantle you politically, systematically, until there's nothing left. Riker's voice dropped. I need to know you're ready for that. Because once you're crowned, I can't protect you the same way. You'll be your own power, your own target. Fear twisted in Alara's stomach. But underneath it was something stronger. Determination. The same stubborn refusal to break that had kept her standing in the arena. I'm ready, she said. Are you? His eyes searched hers. Because there's still time to back out. Announce you're stepping down. Cite health, pressure, anything. You'd survive. Live quietly, somewhere safe. Is that what you want? No. The word was immediate, certain. But it's not about what I want. It's about whether you can survive what's coming. I've survived everything so far. This is different. This is permanent. Riker moved closer. Once you wear that crown, you can't take it off. Can't walk away when it gets hard. You're bound to this kingdom. To me. To every decision we make. Forever. The weight of that settled over her. Forever. Not a temporary arrangement. Not a political convenience. A life. I know, Alara said quietly, and I'm still saying yes. Something shifted in Riker's expression. Relief. Pride. Something else she couldn't name. Then tomorrow we remake the kingdom, he said. Together. He kissed her. Different than before. Not a claim or a seal. Something deeper. More real. When he pulled back, Alara's heart was racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. That was not political, Riker finished. His smile was slight, anymore. Coronation Day dawned cold and bright. Alara woke to Vera's efficient panic, a team of stylists descending like locusts, and the kind of controlled chaos that preceded major events. The dress fit perfectly. Her hair was arranged in something elaborate and painful, Jewelry that weighed more than she did appeared from royal vaults.
"You look like a queen," her mother said. Alara turned. She hadn't heard her mother arrive, hadn't expected her. But there she stood in the doorway, wearing her best dress, eyes shining with tears. "Mom, let me look at you." Her mother moved closer, touched Alara's face gently. "My daughter, a queen. I never imagined." "Neither did I." Alara's voice cracked. "I'm terrified." "Good. Means you're taking it seriously." Her mother smiled. "Your father wanted to come, but the borders?" "I know. It's okay." Alara hugged her carefully, mindful of the dress. "Thank you for being here. Wouldn't miss it."
Her mother pulled back, wiped her eyes. "Now go. Make them remember why they chose you." The coronation ceremony took place in the Grand Cathedral, ancient stone walls that had witnessed the crowning of 50 kings. The building was packed. Every noble family, every pack leader, foreign dignitaries, representatives from border communities wearing their best clothes and looking completely out of place among the silk and jewels. Alara walked down the center aisle on Riker's arm, feeling 1,000 eyes tracking her every step. The whispers were quieter now, respect mixed with resentment, fear mixed with curiosity. She'd earned this, through blood and stubbornness and refusing to break. The ceremony was long, traditional. Elder Matthias presided, his voice strong despite his age. Words about duty, service, sacrifice, about what it meant to lead, to carry the weight of a kingdom. Then came the moment. The crown sat on a velvet cushion, delicate silver worked into patterns that resembled forest branches, smaller than the king's crown, more elegant, deadly beautiful. "Alara Quinn," Elder Matthias said clearly, "do you swear to serve this kingdom, to protect its people, to rule with justice and mercy?" "I do." "Do you accept the burden of this crown, the weight of responsibility, the sacrifice of self for the good of all?" Alara thought about everything that had led here. Kyle's rejection, the arena, the assembly, every person who'd told her she didn't belong. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, and with the consent of the assembled lords and ladies," Matthias lifted the crown, "I crown you queen of this realm. May your reign bring justice. May your strength bring peace. May your courage inspire generations." The crown settled on her head, heavier than she expected, cold metal warming slowly against her skin. The cathedral erupted in applause. Not universal. Some nobles sat silent, faces carved from stone. But enough. Enough voices raised in support that it felt real. Alara Quinn was queen. The celebration afterward was excessive, banquets and dancing and political posturing disguised as congratulations. Alara moved through it like a ghost, accepting well wishes from people who'd tried to destroy her weeks ago, making polite conversation with wolves who still thought she was a mistake. But underneath the performance, things were shifting. Lord Corvin approached near midnight when the crowd had thinned. "Your Majesty." "A moment?" They moved to a quiet corner. Corvin looked uncomfortable, unusual for a man who'd spent decades in court politics. "I owe you an apology," he said. Alara blinked. "Excuse me?" "When you first arrived, I dismissed you, thought you were a distraction, a political misstep." Corvin's expression was almost embarrassed. "I was wrong. What you've accomplished, the border reforms, the Blackwood trial, surviving challenges that would have broken most, it's remarkable." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. I'm about to make your life harder." He pulled a folder from his jacket. "These are proposals. Reforms I've been sitting on for years because they were too radical, too dangerous politically. But watching you..." He paused. "You've proven radical might be necessary. So, if you're interested, I'd like to help." Alara took the folder, flipped through pages of policy proposals. Tax reform, healthcare expansion, education accessibility. Things that would help regular people at the expense of noble privilege. "This is revolutionary." "I know." Corvin smiled slightly. "But you've already started a revolution. Might as well finish it." "Why now? Why help me?" "Because I'm tired of maintaining a broken system." His honesty was startling. "And because you're the first person in 40 years who might actually fix it." Other nobles followed throughout the night. Not all of them, not even most, but enough. Younger wolves tired of their parents' games, border representatives grateful for reforms, even a few traditionalists who'd watched the Blackwood trial and realized change was coming whether they liked it or not. They brought ideas, support, alliances Alara hadn't expected. The resistance was still there. She could feel them watching from the shadows, but the balance was shifting, slowly, steadily. She was winning. The real test came 3 months later. Winter had settled over the kingdom, bringing with it the annual budget negotiations, usually a tedious process where nobles fought over resources while borders starved. This year was different. Alara entered the council chamber with a proposal that made even Riker nervous. Healthcare, she said, laying out detailed plans. Universal. Free at point of service. Funded by progressive taxation on noble estates. The chamber exploded. "You can't be serious," Lady Ashford started. "I'm completely serious." Alara's voice cut through. "We have villages where people die from treatable illnesses because they can't afford healers, while nobles pay for cosmetic treatments and luxury medicine. That's unacceptable." "It's economically impossible," Lord Brennan argued. "The cost is less than what we spend on ceremonial functions, less than what the Blackwoods were stealing through smuggling, less than what we waste on maintaining empty estates." Alara had numbers ready, charts, projections. "It's possible. It's just inconvenient. For you." The debate raged for hours, nobles arguing about tradition, economics, the proper role of government. But this time, Alara had allies. Corvin spoke in support. Younger pack leaders backed her. Border representatives shared stories that made even hardened nobles uncomfortable. The vote was close. Brutal. But it passed. Universal health care. Funded by the wealthy. Available to everyone. The kingdom had changed. That night, Alara found Riker in his study, surrounded by reports on the budget vote's implications. "You just redistributed wealth on a massive scale," he said without looking up. "Half the noble families will never forgive you." "Good. They shouldn't." Alara sat across from him. "People were dying. We had resources. The math was simple. Politics is never simple." "Then maybe politics is the problem." She leaned forward. "I didn't become queen to maintain the status quo. I became queen to fix what's broken. And if fixing it destroys the kingdom, then the kingdom was already dying. We're just making the death visible instead of letting it rot quietly." Alara's voice was firm. "I'd rather try and fail than succeed at preserving something fundamentally wrong." Riker finally looked up. His expression was complicated, pride and concern and something deeper. "You've changed," he said. "So have you." "How?" "You smile more, laugh occasionally, act like a person instead of a political machine." Alara's own smile was slight. "I'm a bad influence. The worst." But he was smiling too. "What you did today, the healthcare proposal, that's going to have consequences. Big ones. Are you ready?" "I've been ready since I walked back into that hall wearing a homemade dress." Alara stood, moved around the desk. "I'm not that girl anymore. I'm the queen who survived, who fought, who refuses to accept that things have to stay broken. And what am I? The king who's finally letting himself be human." She touched his face gently. "We're good for each other. In weird, complicated, probably unhealthy ways, but good." Riker caught her hand, held it. "I didn't expect this." "What?" "To actually care. About you. About us." His honesty was stark. It was supposed to be political, convenient, but somewhere between the arena and now it became real. "Is that a problem?" "Probably." His smile was sharp. "But I'll take it anyway." He kissed her, long and thorough and full of everything they'd been avoiding acknowledging. When they pulled apart, Alara was breathless. "We should probably figure out what this means," she said. "Later. Right now we have a kingdom to run." Riker stood, pulled her close. Together. The first year of Alara's official reign was chaos. Healthcare implementation, education reforms, border security improvements, tax restructuring, Every change fought tooth and nail by nobles who saw their privilege eroding, but the results were undeniable. Mortality rates dropped. Border villages thrived. Crime decreased as smuggling networks were dismantled. The kingdom wasn't perfect, far from it, but it was better. Measurably, obviously better. Even opponents had to acknowledge it. "You're making me obsolete," Corvin joked during a council meeting. "If you keep solving problems, what will we argue about?" "We'll find something," Alara assured him. "There's always more work." The resistance didn't disappear. It evolved, became more sophisticated. Challenges came through legal channels now instead of assassination attempts, political maneuvering instead of direct confrontation. Alara handled it all with the same stubborn determination that had kept her standing in the arena. She won more than she lost. 2 years into her reign, Alara visited the eastern border again. Her father's station had transformed. New buildings, modern equipment, guards who looked healthy instead of desperate. The change was stark. "You did this," her father said, walking her through the improvements. "All of this." "We did this," Alara corrected. "You survived long enough for someone to listen. I just had the power to act." They stood in the yard where she'd once played as a child, where she'd learned what it meant to protect something bigger than yourself. "Are you happy?" her father asked. The question surprised her. "I don't know. Happy isn't the word. Satisfied, maybe. Purposeful." "That's better than happy." He studied her with those sharp eyes. "You've become someone important, someone who matters." "I was always someone who mattered. You just needed the crown to see it." Alara smiled. "But I know what you mean. And yes, I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The return to Blackstone Court felt different now. Not like coming to enemy territory, like coming home. Riker met her in the courtyard, pulled her into an embrace that was becoming familiar, comfortable. "How was the trip?" he asked. "Productive. The border reforms are holding. People are optimistic." She pulled back, studied his face. "You look tired." 3 rebellions, 2 trade disputes, and a diplomatic incident with the Western Kingdoms. Tuesday. His smile was wry. "But we're managing. We always do." They walked inside together, discussing problems and solutions and the 1,000 small crises that came with running a kingdom, partners in everything that mattered. Somewhere along the way, the political arrangement had become something real. Not romance in the traditional sense. They were both too pragmatic for fairy tales. But partnership, respect, trust, love, maybe. In their own complicated way. That night, standing in the throne room after yet another council session, Alara looked at the empty chairs where nobles had sat in judgment, where they'd tried to break her, dismiss her, prove she didn't belong. She'd proven them wrong, not through birthright or political maneuvering or playing their games, through sheer refusal to quit, through being exactly who she was, stubborn, principled, unwilling to accept that broken systems had to stay broken. Riker appeared beside her. "What are you thinking?" "That I came here for the wrong reasons, stayed for the right ones." Alara turned to face him, and that everything that seemed impossible turned out to be just difficult. "Is there a difference?" "Huge difference. Impossible means you don't try. Difficult means you try anyway." She smiled. "I'm glad I tried." "So am I." Riker's expression was soft in a way it never was for anyone else. "You've changed everything. The kingdom, the court, me. We changed everything, together." Alara took his hand. "And we're not done yet." "No, we're just getting started." 5 years after Alara first walked into Blackstone Court wearing a hand-sewn white dress, the kingdom was unrecognizable. Border territories thrived. Healthcare was universal. Education was accessible. The gap between noble privilege and common poverty had narrowed, not disappeared, but narrowed. Real progress. Alara Quinn, the girl they'd called border trash, the nobody with nothing, had become the queen who reshaped the kingdom, not through compromise or political games, through being brave enough to demand better and stubborn enough to make it happen. History books would talk about her reforms, her policies, the systems she changed, but the people would remember something else. They'd remember the queen who came from nothing and refused to let that define her, who fought for them when nobody else would, who proved that power wasn't about birthright, It was about will. And they'd tell their children, if she could do it, maybe we can too. That was the real revolution. Not laws or policies, but possibility. The idea that anyone, border guard's daughter, forgotten wolf, overlooked person, could change the world if they were brave enough to try. Alara stood on the balcony overlooking Blackstone Court, Riker beside her, watching the sun set over the kingdom they'd rebuilt together. "Any regrets?" he asked. She thought about Kael's rejection, the arena, the assassination attempts, every person who'd tried to break her, every moment she'd wanted to quit. "None," her voice was certain. "Every terrible thing led here. I'd do it all again. Even the parts that almost killed you? Especially those. They proved I was stronger than I thought." She looked at him. "We both are." Riker pulled her close. They stood there together, king and queen, partners, survivors, watching their kingdom settle into evening. From the courtyards below came voices, laughter, life continuing, people living in the kingdom they'd helped build, better than before. Not perfect, but better. And still improving. Because that was the work, not achieving perfection, just making things a little better every day. Refusing to accept that broken systems had to stay broken, fighting, always fighting, but together now, not alone. Alara Quinn had come to Blackstone Court believing one story, that a man's promise could change her life. She'd learned a different truth, only she could change her life. Through courage, through stubbornness, through absolute refusal to break. And in changing herself, she'd changed the kingdom. The girl in the white dress was gone. In her place stood a queen who'd earned her crown through blood and determination and the kind of will that doesn't quit. Not chosen by fate, chosen by herself. And that made all the difference.